Hello dear students, once again welcome to another quick revision session that's conducted by IAS Baba. I am Sneha Ramesh and I would be guiding you through this session. Now this session has been done specifically to cater to one big problem area that students face in environment and ecology. As you know, in environment and ecology, you do have a lot of areas like tiger reserves, you have national parks, you have Ramsar sites, and so many of them that it becomes quite difficult to, memorize all of these things. And sometimes students are also quite confused as to do we even have to memorize all of these things? And that's a very important question because it's actually not needed that you have to memorize all of these different protected areas. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take the specific protected area called as the tiger reserves of our country, and I'm going to take you through as to which are the tiger reserves that are super important for your Prelims 2025. Okay, now though we are giving you the list for Prelims 2025, I want you to understand this list has been curated based on the current affairs and the important facts and the previous year's questions that have come from this particular area. That means, don't get me wrong, it's not like I'll ask you to study all the 56 or 55 tiger reserves, but out of these, I'll handhold you through the most important tiger reserves. As you know, this is a very important mission, and so this set of videos or this session will be divided into 4 major parts where we would learn the tiger reserves in a manner that you need for UPSC. Now, what is this thing that you need for UPSC? See, now let me just put it very blankly in front of you. There are almost 55, 56 tiger reserves. Now, I'm telling 55, 56. The reason being that this is a list that has been approved in principle. So, let's say, for our understanding, there are 56 tiger reserves in our country. Now, it's important that you are familiar with where these tiger reserves are. So, for example, when I tell you Palamau or Valmiki or Dudhwa, you should have a fair idea as to what state it is in. So, that is the first level that you require for UPSC, where you have to be familiar with your tiger reserves. But the second level is not needed for all of the tiger reserves. And the second level means some of these tiger reserves have to be studied in depth. So it's quite practically impossible to study all of your 55 or 56 tiger reserves in depth. That is where we have to go in depth for some of those tiger reserves and just some of them only. Now, how do you figure out which are these some of them? And that's why you have me over here, and that's what I'll be doing for you. Okay, so I hope the mission of this session is clear to you. So this session is primarily going to be useful for anyone who's looking for having a quick revision guide into the tiger reserves of our country based on the current and contemporary affairs that have happened in the last 2 years and including this year. Okay, so without much delay, let's go and let's dive into the first part of this session. Before I start discussing about all the tiger reserves, I want you to understand this number is super important right now for us. Why? Because in 2022, we had the tiger census results coming out. The tiger census is something that happens once in 4 years, and here you have the 2022 results coming out. According to the 2022 results, you see that 3,682 happens to be the average number of tigers in our country. So you see there are 2 numbers that you will see in different news articles. They also give a higher limit and a lower limit. Now, the reason why it's given is because there can be instances of double counting, etc. when it comes to counting these tigers. But for all our exam purposes, understand, you need to know that 3,682 is the average number of tigers that are right now in our country. As part of several measures like your Project Tiger, your NTCA's active efforts is where we have been able to improve the number of tigers to 3,682. These 3,682 tigers are distributed in over 56 tiger reserves. Now again, the 56 comes with a star over here, the reason being that even as we speak right now, there is in principle approvals for certain tiger reserves that are given that might be implemented by the time you have your exams. So as of now, the ones that are notified are 56 in number, and that is why it's put with a star. Got it? And these are distributed in over 18 states of India. Okay, so these tiger reserves are 56 in number and distributed over 18 states. And in total, when you look at it, India has 75% of the world's tiger population. Got it? Now as we move forward, and this is where we are diving into our session actually, you have to understand, when you take the total number of tigers in our country and you look at the state-wise distribution, the most or the largest number of tigers happen to be located in 4 major states. Okay, so you have Madhya Pradesh having the highest number of tigers. Madhya Pradesh stands first with almost 785 tigers, followed by Karnataka, which is of 563 tigers, followed by Uttarakhand, which has 560 tigers, and Maharashtra, which has 444 tigers. So, in the first 2 parts of our session, what we would be doing is exploring the different tiger reserves of these areas. Why? Because, come on, they have the highest number of tigers. So, obviously, they must be doing something right when it comes to their tiger reserves. So, obviously, there are going to be several news articles, several reports related to these specific states and the tiger reserves in these specific states that would have featured in the last 2 to 3 years. So, on a very high priority basis, if you're just looking at the most important tiger reserves, I would suggest you watch the first 2 sessions which are there. And without much delay, let's start exploring the tiger reserves in the state which has the highest number of tigers, which is your Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh is home to 7 major tiger reserves, and this is where I just familiarize you with which are the tiger reserves that are there in Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh is home to the Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve, Kanha Tiger Reserve, Panna Tiger Reserve, Pench Tiger Reserve, and Pench is something that is shared. It's a tiger reserve that's shared between Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. So Pench is a name that we will come across even when we discuss the tiger reserves of Maharashtra. Then you have the Sanjay Dubri Tiger Reserve, Satpura Tiger Reserve, and the very newly declared Virangana Durgavati Tiger Reserve. So as you can see, Madhya Pradesh, true to the title of having the largest or the highest number of tigers, is home to 7 major tiger reserves, and these are the ones that you are the ones that are quite familiar over there. So what do you do with this information? And I'll tell you what. Those who are watching these sessions and have not ever done the topic of tiger reserves, I would suggest you take a political India map with you, an unmarked map. Go to the state of Madhya Pradesh and just mark, you don't even have to know the right locations, you just mark these 7 spots over there. So you have Bandhavgarh, Kanha, Panna, Pench, Sanjay Dubri, Satpura and Virangana Durgavati. You mark these sites. Okay, so this is a part of the learning process, and once you've marked, maybe if you've just put a dot or something on some of those tiger reserves, which we're going to study in depth, maybe mark it with or you can highlight it with a different color. So you know which are the ones that are super important for revision. And in that manner, the one tiger reserve that is super important when it comes to your Madhya Pradesh is your Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve. So much information and so many reasons as to why Bandhavgarh becomes important. Bandhavgarh, as you can see, derives its name from the legends of Ramayana. Okay, and here you can see, though in Madhya Pradesh hosts the highest number of tigers, Bandhavgarh as it is has 135 tigers in the recent census. Okay, Bandhavgarh has been in news also because of the presence of white tigers. In fact, more than the number of tigers, Bandhavgarh has been in the news in the last 2 years because there have been sightings of white tigers. And I want you to understand, white tigers are not a new species of tigers or anything. It is just a tiger that has had a genetic mutation with respect to its color. Okay, so here you have the presence of white tigers. Bandhavgarh again was in news because a certain species called as the Indian bison was reintroduced into Bandhavgarh from another area that we would study called as your Kanha. Okay, so Bandhavgarh has been in news because of the presence of white tigers and the Indian bison reintroduction. Apart from all of that, Bandhavgarh also happened to be as part of a contemporary affair where somewhere in 2022, the Archaeological Survey of India found that it has almost 26 Buddhist caves inside the premises of your Bandhavgarh. And when they explored, they understood that these caves belong to somewhere around your 2nd to 5th century BC, and they were remains of your Mahayana sect of Buddhism. So you probably from your history and your culture parts, you do know that you have your chaityas, you have your viharas, you have so many areas where sermons were conducted. So all of these sites were seen in your Bandhavgarh. So all of this information puts Bandhavgarh as a prominent current affair. Now, as we move on, the next tiger reserve from Madhya Pradesh that requests a little bit of importance is your Panna Tiger Reserve. Panna has been in news for various reasons, guys. First of all, very recently, it was discovered that Panna has a lot of these caves inside the Tiger Reserve premises, and there have been carvings that can be traced back to your Neolithic era. So again, it's a culture significance that has put it into place. The next thing as to why Panna becomes important and it's prominently there in news is because through your Panna Tiger Reserve, you have a certain river called as your Ken River. Okay, now Ken River as it is not problematic, but you have another major project called as your Ken Betwa River Interlinking Project. And Ken Betwa River Interlinking Project has a lot of environmental consequences where if the project does happen, it is likely to submerge a lot of parts of your Panna Tiger Reserve. So again, that is the reason why Panna comes about in news. Moving forward, Panna is also home to a huge gorge. Gorge is like a very deep valley sort of a thing. And it's not just any gorge. This gorge is called as a Vulture Point Gorge. Okay, so in this site, you do see the presence of a lot of different kinds of vulture species. And again, that has come into news, and we'll discuss this later when we might talk about species. Vultures are another important species which are bordering on the range of critically endangered and endangered in India. So anywhere you have vulture sightings, that is also considered as important. And that is where Panna, though a tiger reserve, you have your Vulture Point Gorge in Panna. Another important fact related to your Panna Tiger Reserve is that here Cambodia and India have engaged in a tiger reintroduction project. Primarily, officials from Cambodia visited Panna Tiger Reserve to maybe try to reintroduce tigers into their premises. So they wanted to take the Indian tigers to reintroduce it in Cambodia. So in that context also, Panna was in news. Finally, a very important and very interesting point, I would say, Panna is home to a specific tree species called as the Kulu tree. As you can see from this picture, it's otherwise also called as the ghost tree or the gum tree. Now, the reason why it's called as ghost or gum is because, first of all, ghost, I'll tell you, because obviously that's the more interesting reason that is there. As you can see, this tree's bark undergoes color transformation, and sometimes it's in this pinkish white color, and at night and everything it looks like, it's like those huge structure which is dressed in white standing in front of you. So that is why it's called as the ghost tree and gum tree, because the resin that you get from this tree is used to create a lot of adhesive products, gum products. Okay, so all in all, Panna is something that we study because of all of these different points that are either factual, have a factual relevance, or have a current affair relevance. As we move forward to the other tiger reserves in Madhya Pradesh that you might have to know. First one, I'll talk about Kanha and then I'll come to this. So you have the Kanha Tiger Reserve. The Kanha Tiger Reserve is otherwise also called as the Jungle Book Tiger Reserve. Why? Because this, the work of Jungle Book, I hope you all know the boy, the boy raised by wolves, which is Mowgli, and all the creatures that you see in Jungle Book have been inspired by this particular tiger reserve. So it's sometimes called as the Jungle Book Tiger Reserve. Also, despite it being the tiger reserve, here the flagship species of this flagship, I hope you all know what it is. Flagship is like the brand ambassador of that particular tiger reserve. The brand ambassador of Kanha Tiger Reserve is not a tiger, but a species called as the Barasingha. And this is one other reason why it was in news, because they chose Barasingha as your flagship species, and they named it also and they called it Bursing. So Bursing, the Barasingha, is the flagship species of Kanha Tiger Reserve, and that is why it was there in news. Okay, so this covers the ones that we have already listed. Now, in Madhya Pradesh, there has been an in-principle approval given to one more tiger reserve, and that is called as your Rathapani Tiger Reserve. If Rathapani gets fully notified, it becomes the 8th tiger reserve in Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so keep an eye out for it. But other than that, now to conclude, you have your major tiger reserves from Madhya Pradesh happening to be the ones that at least we need to consider important, being your Bandhavgarh, Kanha, Panna and Rathapani, just because it's a new notified or to be notified tiger reserve.